Hey, Greg, see that? You see the private chat button. Martin loves this part. If you need to type something for the people watching to not see, just click on the private chat part.
Okay, sounds good.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs at the Club for the very first game preview show of the year. Once again, guys, we are brought to you by Snake River Stampede Whiskey. We'll be brought to you by Snake River Stampede Whiskey all throughout football. Again, we're Tubs at the Club, the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. You know us, Dallas Hammer, Brian Marceau, and Martin Heemstra. We'll talk more about ourselves a little bit later on in the show. But today we have a very special guest joining us. We call him a longtime friend of the pod, the man who escaped Poca Hellhole. It is Greg Woods, the Wazoo beat reporter for the Spokesman Review. Greg, fantastic to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome.
Love to see your bright and shining face covering something that's not the tragedy that is the Idaho State Bengals. But we're just going to jump right in because we know you are on a very short time frame with us. So, Greg, my first question to you. Are the Vandals actually playing the Cougs, or are they maybe playing the Bengals, or maybe Missoula, or like what is actually going on here? Because that depth chart is just filled with oars. What can we expect on Saturday?
Side note, for just got a filibuster right off the bat, dude. That's why we bring people on. For those who don't know what Dallas is talking about, Washington State's depth chart was released on Monday, and there was an oar placed between every single roster named player on the WSU roster, meaning that depth chart tells you nothing about the depth chart whatsoever, except the roster names are presumably correct, meaning WSU is giving no hint whatsoever about what the lineup is supposed to look like, which makes sense when you're playing an FCS team as a Pac-12 member. Back to Greg.
Well, I definitely understand the shock of seeing an oar at every position from quarterback to kicker. But the truth is, there is some things to be gleaned from this, even if there are 1,000 oars. I mean, the truth is, I don't know if you can pull it up or if anybody sees it, but there is something to be gleaned from the fact of who is the first player listed at each position. I think that is who's going to start at those positions. Now, I think there are a couple exceptions. I think at receiver, I think you might see Devin Ellison start over Jeremiah Noga. At tight end, I think you might see Adebola Faye get the starting nod over Trey Lechner. There you go. But besides those two, I think the guys that are listed at the very top will end up being the guys that start. They might, tell you otherwise to keep you in the dark, but I think that's what you have to kind of glean from that for sure.
So, Greg, I guess the question that a lot of us have, look, Washington State has 21 returning letter winners from last season, which, hey, new coach Jimmy Rogers from South Dakota State. Rogers went 27-3 at South Dakota State. Side note, he inherited some pretty goddamn good teams in those 2 years. But new coach, 21 new returners, not like the practice has been shut down since I believe you said August 15th for media. Yeah. So a lot of Vandals are thinking okay, I know it's the Cougars, but I don't know anything about the Cougars. Can you kind of run us through a little bit of the WSU 101 from having been to practice and having talked to Coach Rogers and the players too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a total of 74 newcomers, which is totally insane. Even if I say it, no matter how many times I say it. Yeah, 74 newcomers. I did a story today about how many of those guys are getting pulled up from lower. Well, I don't mean that as a bad way, but the FCS ranks, or there's a guy from D2, there's guys from JUCO. So a lot of just and that's kind of just the way college football goes, in this day and age. But totally new faces. They have 3 returning starters, which is, that's the entire list. And 2 of them are offensive linemen. So a lot of new faces, which is what you would expect from a new coaching staff. And I think that, I think. I'm not from this area at all. And I think when I was growing up, if you had asked me what I thought about Washington State, the first thing I would have told you is the air raid. That's what comes to mind for most people. This is not going to be that at all. I can't tell you exactly what the offense will look like, obviously, but I think the general expectation is going to be maybe not run heavy, but more run anchored, which is where guys like Angel Johnson come in. He's going to be their starting running back. And that plays a big part in who they choose at quarterback. They want the quarterback to be mobile. That was a big reason why they went and got the 2 transfers out of the portal this spring and summer. Both those guys are dual threat quarterbacks. So I don't know if it's a giant change, and I guess it is kind of a giant change in mentality in terms of the way they do things on the field. Because the product you see out there on Saturday will not be at the Cougars. Over the last 10, 20 years.
It sounds like it's going to be a little bit more pro style leaning, a lot like what we saw from South Dakota State in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is Zevi Eckhouse going to be the guy? And I guess the more leading question here is, well, he's probably the guy week 1 because he's the senior. Is he going to be the guy throughout the rest of the year, or are they going to be trying to sprinkle in again those young transfers just to kind of get more of what Jimmy Rogers wants to be doing here?
Well, they would want you to believe that any of those 4 guys could run out there for the first snap on Saturday. But gun to my head, if they had a game tomorrow, I would say it's Zevi for sure. It's Zevi Eckhouse. Like you said, by far the most experienced. Played 3 years at Bryant, transferred here, was QB2 last year, then played the bowl game when Mateer had entered the portal, and looked. More good than bad, I would say, in the bowl game. So, yeah, by far the most experienced. Like I mentioned earlier, they want their quarterback to be mobile. And I think if Zevi could play his way, if he could call the shots, if he's playing, CFP 26, he's probably just sitting back there and, picking apart secondaries. But I think what has really cemented his case as QB1 in this fall camp was just how much more mobile he became and how much improvement he showed with his legs. They did a few live reps with the quarterback so they could have gotten tackled just like any other player, and they did. And I would say he looked the best out of all the 4 quarterbacks in those reps, even as as limited as they were. So yeah, I think if they played tomorrow morning, he would be the guy running out there, and I think he will be on Saturday night.
Which, he's some background on Eckhouse at quarterback. His last season at Bryant, threw 28 touchdowns, 7 picks. That's how he got to WSU in the first place. And then last season in the, more limited run throughout the entire year, threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 74% completion percentage last season. Now, completely different offense, like you referenced. But so, what it sounds like to me is whatever Rogers is going to try to do at WSU is going to be probably not that different from what he was running at South Dakota State. It's going to be weird for WSU team to be doing that just because of what we've seen forever, from the Leach lineage and on. Curious if he's going to be able to. I'm curious what that's going to mean at WSU because at South Dakota State, especially in Rogers' first season, he had a roster full of NFL dudes. And gun to my head, I would bet easily on that first South Dakota State team probably doing just fine against Washington State if they're to play today. So, hey, you just talked about, but you talked about probably going to be a lot more run heavy than we expected WSU. You talked about Angel Johnson and Eckhouse as 2 big names to pay attention to. Anything else on the offensive side of the ball that in the practices you were able to attend stood out to you as hey, this is probably going to be a hallmark of what we're going to see from WSU this year?
Yeah, I think they'll, kind of pick their spots when it comes to airing it out. If they could play, if they could just, play the way they wanted to, if they would just get 4 or 5 yards every time and, have a 10-minute drive that ends in 6. And I think a lot of, playing the way they want to play is going to involve a lot of like shorter out routes that kind of simplify things for Eckhouse. Not that he needs that, but I think that's just kind of the way they want to do their offense is, not exactly ground and pound, but I think they feel more comfortable kind of moving in chunks like that. And so I think that's a lot of what you'll see. I think they want to involve the tight ends a lot. That's a big reason why they wouldn't got Fale out of Michigan State. I mean, he played every game there, but super limited role. Super veteran guy. I think he's going to start at tight end for them on Saturday, and they're just bigger across the board from tight end to the quarterback, even if it's not the starter, to just all across the board. I think they just value athleticism and size. And offensively, I think Devin Elson's going to be a guy to watch. At receiver, he was awesome at JUCO. Finally became eligible after a couple of years on the sideline, and he'll be good. I'm trying to think. They have. It's a whole new crop. They have the one returning starter-ish. He didn't start every game. Josh Meredith, I think he'll play a pretty big role on the outside for them this season. I wouldn't say like a possession receiver, but not kind of the home run threat you would typically see. I think there'll be a lot of the ground, but they also have enough credibility at the receiver spot and at the quarterback spot to keep you guessing a little bit.
You mentioned the size, Greg. That's one thing for our listeners I want you guys to really notice. While there's a lot of talk about Idaho feeling really good about this season, you look at the Cougar expected starting offensive line. That Dew and Hilborn are going to start. They're both 6'5", 300-pound plus. Almost every other guy in the two deep is 6'3" to 6'7", over 300 pounds. Like, this is a very obviously a team that wants to build the trenches and win the same way that South Dakota State won over the last handful of years. But I guess offensively, there are 3 different South Dakota State running backs that transferred in. Obviously, you mentioned Angel Johnson is kind of the guy to look out for. But is this going to be more of the Angel Johnson is the bell cow and he's going to get a ton of work? Or is this going to be, we see those 3 guys plus Leo Pulalasi from last year cycling in and doing a full rotation and committee?
I don't think it'll be an even split at all. I think you'll see the most of Johnson. I think their RB2 is going to be Kirby Voorhees, who also came over from South Dakota State. He'll get some carries too. And then I think you'll see, like you said, Pulalasi will be in there too. I think Johnson will get, like I said, the majority of carries. That's kind of the way they split it up pretty, not evenly, but fairly evenly at SDSU the last few years. So I think that's the way they'll do it here. I think they have a lot of trust in Johnson. He's, the way they framed it is that, he would have played a lot more the last couple of years, but the problem is they had guys that would not be drafted or not drafted, but, signed deals with pro teams, today or this year. So I think the way they see it is that like they have this stable of guys that just, couldn't produce because of the guys that were in front of them. So I think in that way, I think you'll see more of Johnson, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Voorhees and Pulalasi were in there plenty as well.
Now, of course, at South Dakota State, Jimmy Rogers, he was the defensive coordinator. He's the defensive guy. Other side of the ball for Idaho to pay attention to. What did WSU look like defensively when you're watching them?
Well, they're going back to 4-3. They were 4-2-5 the last couple of years with Jake Dickers. They'll be 4-3 now. They have so much depth up front. That'll be big. But I think if I had to pick one part of the defense for people to be aware of, it's their safety group. They have their top 3 safeties are all played a million games together at South Dakota State between Tucker Large, Matt Durant, and Kale Reeder. Those guys, I'm not making this. And I think they're at about 150 games between them combined. Which is just almost unheard of in today's college football. So, and that's going to be a huge change for them. The last couple of years, their safety core was nothing to write home about, honestly. A lot of the big plays they gave up are because of, the safety being out of position or just like not having the athletes, to be honest. But I think this year that's going to turn into a real strength for them. They're just the veteran nature of those guys and just the speed and know-how and just the trust they have from Roger, I think it's going to be a huge plus for them. They're a little bit more inexperienced at the linebacker spot. They're going to start Anthony Polano, redshirt freshman, the only one confirmed starter. Not that you would know any different from the depth chart, but he's starting a middle linebacker, has not played a snap of defense in his life at the college level, but he'll be out there. And Parker McKenna will be at one of the other spots, and then Caleb Francel, both seniors, will be around him. So those are two veteran guys, but Francel has been injured a lot in his career, and then McKenna came on strong toward the end of last year, but kind of limited reps as well. So, I think the strength of their defense is for sure the secondary safeties in particular. But I think they also have enough depth up front. I mean, that was their main priority in the offseason, was just loading up front between guys that, I mean, they brought over like Max Balone from STSU, who's going to start. Bryson Lamb will also start. He's a returner. So a lot of depth there. But yeah, like I said, I think if there's one part of the defense that'll be a giant transformation, for sure, their safety core.
For our eagle-eared listeners, Parker McKenna, former top 5 Portland State linebacker, was an all-Big Sky talent a couple of years ago before transferring up to Wazoo. Brian, go ahead.
Oh no, well, I was scanning through the WSU roster using that reliable Control F feature, and I saw 16 South Dakota State Jackrabbits who made the way over, and I mean, obviously not all of them can start, but it looks like, hey, like there's 3 in the running back room. You already talked about a ton in the safeties. We got some on the O-line. Any other position groups South Dakota State seems to have buttressed. And with the follow-up question, you just referenced the talent at safety looking superior this year to what you saw last year. I'm just curious overall what your impression has been about the talent for the team as a whole from this year with Jimmy Rogers compared to last year with Coach Dickert.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, they're asking a lot out of a lot of guys who have not played much FBS football, and I think that's what is going to make or break their success or failure on defense. Is like how much can those guys adapt, and how quickly can they? I mean, and this is not me just kissing up to you guys. I watched a lot of FCS football in my life. My last job was covering Idaho State. I watched a lot of bad FCS football. But I watched a lot of good FCS football too. And
even when you were in Moscow for games, you still were able to watch bad FCS football. Because like whenever I'd run into you, it was at the Idaho State game.
But Idaho was awesome that year.
Idaho State was terrible. I know. There's just 2 teams that are playing. Idaho looked great.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But then you also saw the shitty end at the same time.
I can't get away from it. They just keep following me around. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't necessarily think there was always a giant gap there sometimes made out to be between the FCS and FBS levels. I mean, I remember, this is kind of an aside, but I went to Kansas State for college, and I mean, they hired Chris Kleiman to be the K-State head coach, who was just the head coach of North Dakota State. And there was a lot of talk, I don't know how he's going to do. He was the head coach at an FCS program. It's kind of a big jump. But the truth is, I mean, it's not always as wide a gulf as it's made out to be. So, and so I'm not trying to say that, they're going to make the transition super swimmingly. It's all going to go super well. They might, I might look like an idiot. They might look terrible. But I'm just trying to say that I think that for as much as they're asking out of their guys to make that jump, whether it's the 3 safeties or Colby Humphrey at cornerback, or like I said, Balloon at D tackle, or a lot of the edge rushers, defensive end is what they call them, making that jump. I don't think it might end up being a big jump, and they might end up kind of struggling, but I don't think it has to be some, like I said, some wide gulf that it's made out to be sometimes.
Greg, I know this is probably an impossible question to answer because practice has been locked down. Again, the old Mike Leach special that we can't let the FCS school know what's going on because we can't let Portland State beat us again. But it's very hard to project this. This defense is almost entirely transfers, like we've been talking about. How much cohesion is there going to be in week 1 when, again, this is entirely new guys? Yeah, a lot of them have familiarity with Rogers from SDSU, but there's also a lot of depth that transferred in from like Sony Finau from Cal Poly. There's a bunch of guys that have not experienced Rogers that are going to be expected to play serious minutes very early on. What do you think the cohesion of this unit is going to look like game 1 against Idaho?
Well, the good news is that I think the guys that will play a majority of snaps on defense are all part of the Rogers and Jesse Bobbitt defenses at South Dakota State. Like I said, between the 3 safeties, Colby Humphrey, Max Balloon at D tackle, Anthony Polano never actually played on defense. He's more special teams last year, but he was always involved, in the room, going to meetings and whatnot. So I don't think that I'm a little bit bullish on just how cohesive they'll be, just because of a lot. I mean, it's like that's like 5 or 6 of the 11 guys. So I think that might not be as big of a problem. 2-minute warning as it might seem at first. But then, like you said, there's a lot of guys that were not part of that defense. I mean, there's be DeMaurice Colston will be their other starting cornerback. The edges will be like Buda Paletti was at New Mexico State. Bobby Terrell was here, hasn't really played a whole lot so far. So like I said, it's not only that they're asking a lot of guys that have not played FBS football, they're asking a lot of guys that have not played together before. At least half of the starters will be. So I think that'll go a long way into determining just how effective their defense is. Is that you have half your starters play together for a million years together, have played a million games together. Half of them have not. How well can they, gel and make that effective?
So I guess final question, Greg. Keys to the game. What do you think's going to happen? What's your final score prediction?
Well, I don't think it'll be a shootout. I don't think they would want it to be anyway. I mean, I can't pick against WSU. I think they'll win. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I know the last time they played each other came down to the last drive. I wasn't here at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But that obviously was not a blowout either. So I would not be surprised at all if it was a closer game than what's the spread, like 13.5 right now. Would not be shocked by that at all. I think the Cougs will get it done in the end. But I think I think they'll need this game just in terms of the schedule they have coming up. And I think there will be some bumps and bruises in game one, as there always will be. But I think they'll get it done for sure. Do you want to score, or am I just saying how it's going to go?
If you've got a score prediction, I'd love one, but I'm not going to pressure you into one.
I think our football preview section is coming out tomorrow, and I think in the game predictions I did, I think for this one, I think I said, what did I say, like 24-14, something like that? Yeah, we'll go with that.
That's a game.
Yeah.
Hey, great teams cover. That's you heard it here first.
Right.
Greg Woods saying Idaho, great.
But anyway, Greg, you had a hard out, so thanks for indulging us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Sorry it had to be so short. They've never done evening practices as long as I've been here, so this is it took a lot for this to happen. But yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Greg, and maybe when we talk Idaho State in the Hoarder Corners, we can have you on for a cameo.
Hey, they cleaned those up. You seen that? Those are no longer
bullshit. No bullshit. They cleaned up 2 of them. They cleaned up 2 total, and then I got a source that told me almost instantly after the posting was made, they started putting some stuff back in it. So yes, they have one side cleaned up, not the whole thing. Plus, the ceiling is a Hoarder ceiling. They have all the stuff to have basketball at Holt. It's on the ceiling in its own little containment unit.
So they don't get any points for totally redoing their entire arena in your mind?
You want points for getting rid of one of the 7 wonders of the world?
I still miss the porno dome seats.
Do we need points for I don't know, if elephants go extinct? Who gets points for that? It's the same concept. That's not a metaphor. That's literal.
No, yeah, for sure. No, I see what you're saying. All right, I'm gonna run, but thank you guys for having me on. This has been phenomenal. And are you guys coming to the game on Saturday?
Yes, sir.
I will.
Brian will not be.
I'll be in Canada, but I'll still be watching.
Oh, okay. Well, Dallas, maybe I'll run into you. You never know.
It sounds great. I am in section 15. I've got you on Twitter. I think I might have your phone number. We'll connect and see if we can catch up. But Greg, again, thank you, man. Very much appreciate your time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
With that said, gentlemen, before we get into more discussion about this game, if you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the middle fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. You could check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower, which again, You guys just missed that last month. You got to reach out to HRE to get the best views in the entire world. You could camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in the beautiful natural hot springs, and fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes, and Colin and HRE are going to handle the rest. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Brian, after we've heard this from Greg, the defense sounding like they're pretty well put together. Again, I mean, if you go through the too deep, like a former host of the show would have done, it's all San Diego or South Dakota State players. It's filled with South Dakota State players,
especially in the secondary.
Mm-hmm. I mean, realistically, you're talking anytime they pull a linebacker off and go 5 DBs, you're probably seeing 4 of the 5 DBs are going to be South Dakota State players from last year, minus Jamori Colson, the Coug corner who played 8 games last year, missed the other 5 with injury. Like that's probably going to be the strength of their team, which honestly I feel pretty good about when you look at Joshua Wood and this group of receivers. I feel like Idaho's at least got a puncher's chance here, and that's all you can ask for in an FBS game.
No, what I was told from other people who've been able to watch WSU practice is defensively, WSU is going to try to absolutely control the middle and then force, let's say force the run game to the outside where those safeties and corners are waiting. I am going to say, after hearing what Greg had to say about WSU, I don't feel worse for Idaho at all. I mean, depending what fast of the game we're talking about, of course, but like phase 1 on the offensive side, I am absolutely fine with WSU being a team that is probably not going to score a gigantic amount of points, or if they're good, they're going to put up some points. South Dakota State did put up points last season, but this is a completely different talent comparison. It wasn't the entire. Honestly, if it was the entirety of South Dakota State who Idaho is playing right now, I would feel far worse than, hey, some of the guys who hung around in WSU, some of the guys who went with Rogers, and then a bunch of guys from, all over the place, which, hey, lots of teams are compilations. But the fact that you can always anticipate a talent discrepancy between a Mountain West level team, let's say, and the Big Sky. Now, it might not be top end, but once you get to depth, maybe that's where it truly manifests. There should be some talent discrepancy at some level. For a team playing this style, that sounds to me like something Idaho would probably rather match up against than an air raid team, let's say.
Could not agree more.
That part, I feel far better about. And after having listened to, I watched the Idaho scrimmage. I listened to Coach Ford's press conference, which now those are posted to YouTube. So if you want to listen to Coach Ford, Idaho is making it easier and easier and easier to get a hold of some of those things. So congrats to Idaho there. Idaho sounds like they feel pretty damn confident with the matchup. Never mind the WSU, take the team away. Style of play, I feel better now, about what Idaho is going to be coming up against, especially on the offensive side. I guess that's always where I'm concerned, is that at the FBS level, the teams that can score a lot of points, those are the teams in this matchup. They can just slam the door right away. And I don't think this WSU team is geared for that, no, there we go. So I want you now to talk how you feel about the matchup, now that we have a little bit of concrete stuff to work off of.
Yeah, guys, look, I'm going to break this down as dumb as I possibly can. You look back at 2022, I think that was a better Wazoo team than this one is. It was Jake Dickert's second season. Obviously, Idaho lost that by a touchdown after Giovanni McCoy pick on the final drive. But again, this was Jason Eck's first game. Idaho is expected to be total dog shit, and instead they come out, punch Wazoo right in the mouth, and are hanging with them the entire time. This being a team that was running the air raid with Cam Ward, who ended up becoming the first overall pick in the NFL draft. I was told that Cam Ward at the time was not very good, and it was the receivers at Incarnate Word that were hyping him up. You look at that game, And Idaho held with that team led by an NFL quarterback.
And an offense that could not, at that point, Idaho, they had virtually no sustained drives against WSU that game.
The Idaho at its weakest point under Jason Eck, which was still stronger than pretty much every year of Paul Petrino. But you look at where these programs are today. I know it's Thomas Ford's first game as a head coach in Division I. It's Jimmy Rogers' first game as the FBS head coach. As Travis Thompson says in the comment section, Cam Ward's not walking through that door. They're not running the air raid. They're not trying to score 500 points. This is going to be a ball control game. And what's the problem with a ball control game? Man, that margin for error slips, because if you fuck up a couple different times, you keep that opponent in there forever. And looking at Idaho's team, I'm thrilled with the running back room. Again, 4 of the 5 offensive line starters we know very well. We know Charlie Vleem, Nate Azapardi, Leighton Vining, and Keegan Henson have all gotten a good amount of playing time here and have done well. Leon Evans, redshirt freshman, maybe I'm not going to say the weak link, because I don't think he's going to be a weak link at all, but he's the guy who has the least amount of experience of those 5. Yes, they're going to be undersized compared to Wazoo. That's what happens in FCS, FBS. But when you look at the style that Wazoo is expected to be, having been South Dakota State University, just moved up to the FBS, man, bully ball works well when you're in the FCS, and your trenches are so much better than everyone outside of North Dakota State and Montana State. That shit doesn't cut it in big boy football unless you're Alabama and you're running out 5-star recruits at every position. This is going to be a close game, but Brian, there's nothing that Greg said that makes me more nervous about this than I was 20, 30 minutes ago. I think Idaho has a really good chance to win this football game.
No, and hey, Captain just took the words out of my mouth in the comment section saying Joshua Wood is the X factor. That's the thing I was going to bring up too is, you referenced, and I like that as a barometer just to talk about Dallas when you said, hey, the 2022 game or 2021, whatever year that was. Yeah. Is this Idaho team probably better than that Idaho team? I'd gamble that. Is this WSU team better than that old WSU team? I would absolutely not gamble that. So no, 100% winnable game. And the thing to me that is different for Idaho, and you're just going to have to see this, guys. Joshua Wood he just blew open the ceiling for what Idaho can be if the dude can stay healthy, which he was healthy last year as a running quarterback. So that, just an asterisk, because when you have so much riding on one guy, that just matters. But Wood, I would take him over Eckhouse easily. And Eckhouse produced at the FCS level. That's not to put him down, and that he was an effective passer. You do not move up from Bryant, which was that, I think that was pre-CAA Bryant or like first year CAA Bryant. You don't make that big jump, make the roster now likely start without being able to throw the ball a bit. But it's weird to say it, and with Idaho being the FCS team here, and we have history to compare, but no, like I said last time, Cam Ward versus first game Giovanni McCoy. No, now this is Idaho as the edge there. And Idaho feels confident. The thing that I think is that this will come down to, in addition to Joshua Wood, is Thomas Ford and the Idaho team have talked quite confidently about their they don't use this language, but this is what I know they mean. Their first string and regular rotation O-line is something this Idaho team is speaking with far more bravado regarding than any Idaho team in the last 3 years, for good reason. But Idaho clearly believes the offensive line has taken a step. If that is the case, then I feel really good about this Idaho team. We're going to see that when on Saturday. That's when we actually get to see whether the belief the players and the coaches have said about the O-line materializes. But it's wild for me that we're now finally at this point where for each year, we try to be honest about the Idaho team. We are both fanboys, but the point of the show is not to be fanboys. And hey, for a lot of the first few seasons, the O-line was the limiting factor for Idaho against the better teams. This staff seems to think that's not the case, and they have a ton of confidence, not just in their running backs, but the fact that these running backs will be running behind the best O-line they've seen while at Idaho. Yeah. You tell me that, you got me feeling pretty goddamn good about a team that wants to clog the middle so that you can have Eli Cummins matching up with the safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't have said that better, Brian. The offensive line being as strong as it's expected to be, and then you factor in things like Jake Cox. Jake Cox has been a great tight end here. Jake Cox isn't listed as the starter. Gabe Hoffman is the starter. Gabe Hoffman is an FBS guy that's dropped down. He's significantly bigger than Jake Cox. He's 3 inches taller. Is that going to matter a ton over the course of the season? Maybe not. Against the FBS school that's, again, trotting out 300-pounders at almost every position on offense and defensive line. Yeah, having that extra tight end that's a little bit larger is going to help. You look at the defense, Brian, we haven't talked too much about the Idaho defense, but the defensive line depth is also extremely, extremely high. We know what Sam Brown can do. We know what Zach Krotzer can do. Donovan Parham is expected to pop. Matthias McLean, we've been hearing really good things about him. He's listed as a starter now. Mitch Jaskowiak has played a good amount of football the last few years. Like, yes, guys, we lost so much, and we've been doing that year in and year out where Eck put a good team together, everybody transfers. Eck put a good team together, everybody transfers. But part of this era of Vandal football has been rebuilding depth that hasn't been there for a very long time. You look at the linebacking group, as Tom Kendall said in the comment section, I think the linebackers are going to be a lot better than they were last year. Not a shot at those guys, but Isaiah King, as long as he can stay healthy, should be really good. We're hearing great things about Dylan Lane. He's back to a captain of the defense. Love his story, and I can't wait to discuss that more in a show where we have the ability to talk very much about the Lane brothers and their trajectories here and what their careers in Idaho meant. And then you have Will Cornelson, JC transfer, who was essentially the best linebacker in junior college football last year. So you look at what Idaho has done to fill some of the gaps from the things that have been missed. And on paper, Brian, most of the holes from last year have been patched up. Any of the weaknesses from last year are kind of solidified a little bit. Yes, it's going to all hinge on the health of the quarterback that we're all hoping is going to be a Big Sky Player of the Year type of candidate. But man, the Cougs have so many more questions than Idaho does. Idaho is going into this with free house money. You lose, hey, you're expected to lose. It's an FBS game.
Now, by the way, what I want to add here, one of these teams has acted like they've been scared for 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. The other team is Idaho. Idaho's kept their practices open until the spring game, until the second scrimmage, which, I came in and reported on. Idaho has an actual 2 deep that they published. Idaho has named their starting quarterback like a month and a half ago. And by the way, if you actually paid attention, then they essentially had the starting quarterback named like 6 months ago.
Yeah, but like the second the spring.
Right. Yeah. So Idaho is hiding within reason, of course. Idaho is not really hiding anything. It's weird that the Vandals look like the confident team right now heading into this week, whereas WSU looks like they are terrified that someone in the Big Sky is going to figure out, I don't know, get one minor step advantage, never mind like the systemic advantage that you should have at a place like WSU. I do want to acknowledge before we pivot for Idaho 2 things. Some of this is depth chart stuff that I actually think is good. It's interesting, but I think potentially good development. 2 transfers who we expected to potentially be starters in the secondary. Hyson Dalton from Furman and Zach Woostig from Portland State. Dalton's a corner. Woostig is a safety. Both of those guys, at least in week 1, are not listed as starters at their position. Interesting that in the cornerback room, I talked after the scrimmage that Jamel Blenman was clearly going to be a starter at corner. The other starter is Caleb Ricks, a freshman who beat out Dalton so far as the starting corner on the other side, with Dalton being number 2. And of course, we know there'll be some platoon playing. So this isn't like a quarterback winning out position. But then at safety, Woostig is the number two at his spot, with sophomore Matt Irwin, who is not a transfer. He was on the team last year. Number 28, Matt Irwin. He's from Oahe. He's going to be starting, which I find like the reason I find that, I don't know, potentially helpful for Idaho is we know at the FCS level, Woostig and Dalton can play, because they both were starters at their respective schools. Yeah. If guys who we know can play at the FCS are depth pieces at Idaho, that's some pretty killer development going on from some of the underclassmen. And another just thing to maybe look at Idaho defensively is, okay, we know we feel confident in them. Here's another thing to be confident in. I am a little concerned. Denison's been open that the strength of this team is going to be speed, and the players have said that as well. The D line for Idaho is a bit small compared to the O line for WSU. Just talking about weight now, like the game is not won on the scale, of course, but if you look at Idaho, Matthias McLean starting at one edge, he's 255. You got Mitch Jaskowiak at tackle. He's 265. Zach Crosser, we know he can play. He can hold his own. He's listed at 270. And then at the other edge, Donovan Parham listed at 230. Most O linemen for WSU are listed at 300. So hey, there's some size there, but Idaho's been open that speed's how they're going to have to win games on defense. So, this is a real test for the guys up front, but from practice returns, defenses looked very good. And it's not like Idaho has no size on the O-line. If you compare the weights to the Idaho O-line to the Idaho D-line, we just talked about, the D-line is slightly outmatched weight-wise, and they've won more days in practice than they lost. Fingers crossed that is what happens this Saturday. I just want to acknowledge with how good we feel. I feel like that is one facet of this matchup that if WSU is able to take control, that's probably where the talent difference is a big deal, mostly just in the raw size of the O-line versus D-line matchup.
Well, and not even that, Brian, but also when an FCS team is saying speed is going to be what separates them from the competition, that is not as much of an edge against an FBS squad. No matter how good or bad they are, they're going to be bigger and faster. So if you're relying on your speed to beat the Portland States of the world, you're not going to have as much of that advantage with Wazoo. That's why I don't think any of us are coming in here saying Idaho's going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. I have a feeling we're all going to end up picking Idaho, but I'm going to guess it's going to be a lot closer than any of us would hope. This is going to be a close game that matters in the final moments, unless Wazoo somehow blows Idaho out.
And I do want to hey, last thing to add, because we have other stuff we got to get to. Jimmy Rogers, I think, was a really, really big gamble for WSU.
Jimmy Rogers was born on third.
Absolutely. He inherited the fan. And look, he was a good coordinator at South Dakota State. We know. And so we know that the coaching tree out of South Dakota State has, let's say, it's borne some pretty good fruits. But the job that WSU is as a rebuild, not remotely close to getting the keys to a Lamborghini and not driving it into a ditch, which is what happened at South Dakota State. He kept that thing humming, but he wasn't even at South Dakota State long enough for a traditional recruiting class to be called his own. Now, yes, we exist in the world we live in where there's turnover, but the job he has at South Dakota State, very, very, very different than the job today at WSU, where WSU is in year 2 of dropping down. I don't care what people call it. They are dropping down. My little brother's a huge WSU fan. We've lived through this. You cannot sell the fan base energetically on dropping down. You have to prove it by getting wins. We've seen that at Idaho. That's a different challenge. And if Rogers can do it, whatever, that is not something he's had to do at all in his coaching career.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, he was the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year when he won the back-to-back title, going undefeated, and they extended their winning streak to 29 games or whatever the number was. But again, this guy was handed the keys to a team that won the national title and was just told, don't fuck it up. And he didn't fuck it up. Which to him, give him the credit. That's still hard to do. Very hard to keep that ship running, but it is a lot different than coming into a program that was left kind of high and dry by Jake Dickert in the way that he left. A lot of people weren't super thrilled about that. Realistically, the only thing separating Wake Forest and Wazoo is the fact that Wake Forest is still technically in a power conference. Otherwise, those are the 2 shittiest jobs in what was major college football. So he took one dumpster fire for another dumpster fire. Look, Jimmy Rogers has to prove some stuff here. Maybe he does it. Maybe all of a sudden Wazoo goes and wins 10 games each the next couple of years, and we look like, wow, Jimmy Rogers was one hell of a coach. But right now, he has not proven that he can take a team that is in some serious flux and rebuild it. He just kept the ship moving in a straight line. And that's, for me, Brian, that's what I love about this game. What does Idaho have to lose? You show up and you lose 50-0. Okay, well, we've seen that before. Paul Petrino was famous for that. Every coach before Paul Petrino throughout FBS was famous for that.
What Idaho has to lose, I'm pretending this is a literal question, Dallas, is this is a fantastic chance for Idaho to get in the driver's seat for an FCS playoff seed.
Yes.
This is an absolutely winnable FCS FBS game. So, no, you're right. In the matchup, hey, what does Idaho have to lose? They're both, first year coaches, their first game, whatever. No one outside this area is going to pick Idaho. But Idaho is familiar with picking up FBS wins in the OOC and what that means for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm with you on the actual matchup. But I think in Idaho and Idaho fans' heads, we know what this could mean for getting the team in position for a kick-ass run.
Exactly. Basically, Brian, what I was trying to get at is just, hey, Idaho wins this game. Thomas Ford has that locker room probably doing all of the celebrations they possibly can. They lose this game, the conversation is, hey, guys, you fought hard. It's an FBS squad. We knew that was going to be tough. We knew it's a rival. On to week 2. Wazoo wins this game. It's, hey, we did what we were supposed to do. On to week 2. Wazoo loses this game. Fucking meltdown in Pullman. So when you're looking at things like that, I would much rather be on the side of we've got quote unquote nothing to lose and we're going to just swing every haymaker possible. Brian, we're 45 minutes into this show. I think it's time. We still got to get to the rest of the games this week because it is week 1 of the football season. So Brian, if you want to tell us what you've been drinking recently, we'll get Martin in here to do our predictions, final score previews, and then start picking the rest of the.
Why would you ask what I'm drinking? You know the answer, dude. Snake River Stampede Canadian whiskey. Look, it's one of the best buys in Idaho State liquor stores, bar none. Right now, a fifth is $25.95. It stands out amongst Canadian whiskeys in the state of Idaho because, one, it's a 3-grain whiskey, 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley. Second, it's got a finishing process. The whiskey's initially aged in ex-bourbon barrels, then they're finished together for an extra 6 months in Oloroso sherry barrels. What that does is it gives a candied sweetness to me at the end, and honestly, it's like little hints of bourbon mixed in with Canadian whiskey simultaneously that make it kind of stand out more than other Canadian whiskeys. But don't take my word for it. Get to the liquor store right now. Get yourself a Snake River Stampede. Dallas, you're muted.
Thank you. In the comment section, we've got Line of Fire 95 with, I think, the most important point to note here. This ain't Oregon on the road, ladies and gentlemen. Idaho hung with a team that went to the college football playoff last year. Yes, it's week 1, and things change drastically from week 1 to week 15, I guess is what you'd call the college football playoff. But Idaho hung with a top 10 FBS team last year in week 1 and almost had them. There's not a whole lot of things that could convince me Idaho doesn't have a real chance of winning this game. But we've got producer Martin Heemster. Excuse me, producer redacted. Martin, your thoughts on what you've just witnessed in the last 48 minutes?
If you guys aren't excited after watching Brian and Dallas plus Greg joining us to preview this game, and you're not excited about it, I don't know what to say to you. You're probably driving trucks on the road, so you probably don't give a fuck. But I'm excited. It got me excited. It makes me more. After kind of hearing you all talk, I think I have a more comfortable score prediction. But I'm thinking it's going to be close, but I'm excited. I'm just going to say I'm excited.
Martin, I'm going to just rip that Band-Aid right off. Your score prediction for this Saturday's game.
We're not holding that to the end?
Oh, shit. We always do hold that to the end. I forgot we made that change, and we do that after picking the rest of the Big Sky.
Brian, Dallas says want to pick the biggest game of Norco's game this year.
Yeah, I know.
I am all over the place. As Turner Webb says, if you don't chew big red gum, Dallas, go fuck yourself. So, gentlemen, let's get around to the Big Sky. We're going to figure that out. Long-time friend of mine, Kyle Willis, only here for the cutie pie in the top right. Thank you, Kyle. I love you, buddy. Miss you tons. Thanks for joining on. Shadron State, I don't even know how it's pronounced, versus Northern Colorado. Anybody want to pick this D2 dynasty of Shadron, I don't know how it's pronounced, State versus the Bears of Northern Colorado? They might be more teddy bears at this point, but any thoughts, gentlemen? Anybody want to take a pick on this one?
I mean, look, I'm going to pick Northern Colorado, obviously. I mean, the question here for Northern Colorado, they did not shockingly move on from offensive coordinator Justin Waltersheld after scoring like 12 points a game last season. That was his first as OC. Returning quarterback Peter Castelli is a guy who they feel pretty good about. But Northern Colorado better win this game. It's going to answer no questions about if the Bears can score throughout the season at all.
Martin, your pick of Chadron, whoever gives a shit, State against Northern Colorado.
Norco.
That is a fair assumption. I am also going to pick NoCo, which obviously is the clean sweep here. Travis Thompson saying it's Chadron. His dad played there. Travis, I would love to hear more about that. And if they were any good at that time, or if they were as bad as they appear to be, because last year they went 3-8 in D2. There is no way I'm going to pick that team to to beat Northern Colorado. And realistically, if they do beat Northern Colorado, I think that means that Chadron State should just be added to the Big Sky and Northern Colorado should just be wiped off the planet. With that said, next one, guys, Montana State at Oregon, FBS Oregon.
I'm going to go Oregon here. I know there's probably going to be some Montana State fans that think they can hang tough like Idaho did last year. I get this Montana State team is just, they lost so much. They don't have Tommy. I think they'll maybe play well for a little bit, but I think, like, as much as I fucking hate the Ducks, like, Oregon is Oregon, and I think they are going to eventually just pull away.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's going to win. Quarterback Justin Lamson was named starter by Brent Vegan, which if you watched Tubbs at the Club, you knew Justin Lamson was probably going to be the starter. We talked about that in the Cody Hawkins interview we played. So that was back in July. We didn't air that until after July. But, I mean, easy pick Oregon. Montana State has a ton of questions to answer as far as departing talent, but also like they have their depth on O-line remain. They've got offensively, I guess I'm not really worried. And I know last year Malott was like player of the year level, because he won Walter Payton Award, but Lamson doesn't have to be that for Montana State to still be a very, very good football team. So no, I mean, Oregon wins and no one's concerned about Montana State whatsoever.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Going through the comment section, guys, James Jacobs, Oregon by 40, RFI, Oregon by 90, Jason Mayer, Oregon 35, Sadron 21, great pun there. Captain 58, Oregon by 30, Ducks not getting snuck up on twice. James TA, Oregon by at least 3 scores. Turner Webb, Oregon by 40. I mean, Sam Dane, Oregon has a score to settle with the FCS, keeps the pedal down. I do think Oregon is probably going to blow the doors off of Montana State this year just because they did get a little bit embarrassed by Idaho, almost pulling it off last year. Man, you got to go Oregon here. I don't love that. I don't think many of us like Oregon, but again, I think Tommy Malott and last year's Montana State team would have been close. I do think they take a step back this year. I just don't see it happen in week 1 against Oregon. Weber State at former FCS champs, now FBS, James Madison University. Martin.
JMU wins this, and it's not probably close.
Yeah, at JMU, easy pick here. Weber State quarterback Jackson Gilkey, transfer from University of Texas, San Antonio, will be making his debut. He threw Gilkey threw the same amount of passes at UTSA that I did over the last 2 years. So he's a completely fresh start. But like we talked about in our preview, Dallas kind of hit this one. This is a pretty pivotal year for Weber. So like that's kind of the story you're watching with the team, but they're going to get their asses kicked.
Yeah, it's probably not going to go super well. Travis Thompson, Bobcats cover. I do like that, Travis. That is sneaky. I could see coming closer to game time. I could see picking that, but again, Oregon probably going to run away with that one. Coming back to Weber State, JMU, man, JMU is very similar to SDSU in the fact that they had a hell of a coach in Kurt Signetti. He's now at Indiana and has turned Indiana football around very quickly after we got into it with some people on Indiana football Twitter a couple years ago when Idaho was consistently beating them because Tom, whatever the hell his name was a terrible coach. Bob Chesney's the coach there now. Again, kind of born on third there, getting a hell of a program from Kurt Signetti, but they did win 9 games last year. They did win the Boca Raton Bowl. There is no reason to pick Weber State, that is a mediocre to bad FCS school, to beat a team that was one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. So another real interesting game here, guys. Eastern Washington at Incarnate Turd.
I want to pick Eastern, but I think Incarnate Word's gonna fix the issues they had, the stunner they had last week on national TV. I think Incarnate Word probably wins this by about 10 or so.
Well, they fixed the problems against Nichols, because Nichols actually looks pretty stout defensively, and we know Eastern will not be. So just don't think that starting quarterback Richard Torres is going to go for 0 TDs and 3 picks against Eastern. So I'm picking Incarnate Word. Also, with Jared Taylor starting at quarterback for Eastern, he's got to prove he can pass the ball enough. To me, he does, because I know he can run, but he's not like a Tommy Mellott, like radically explosive runner. And if you read the coverage of Eastern's O-line this summer, not promising. So I think there's a lot Taylor's going to have to prove he can do that he hasn't shown he can yet in his run and Big Sky play. So easy pick is Incarnate Word. Yeah.
In the comment section, we got Ron Lowney and James Jacobs both picking Eastern. But as Turner Webb says, Aaron Worst loses by 10. I do think the best days are behind them. And if you talk to Patty, hopefully we can get him back on the show at some point. He's busier this fall than normal. I feel like best is circling the drain here. This team is probably not going to be very good. Again, so many question marks, Brian. There's no way I'm going to pick Eastern over Incarnate Word right now. Maybe Eastern figures things out towards the end of the year. But Eastern, man, we've been waiting a long time to see if they're going to recapture those Bo Baldwin days with Best as the offensive coordinator. And again, Best was born on third, and that program has just continued to slip every year that he's been in charge there. So, we're going to skip past this one because this one is actually intriguing to me. So we're going to jump around in the outline here. So we're just going to hit a couple more of these not important games. Sac State at South Dakota State University. And I say it's not important because I know a lot of people don't want to hear anything about Sac State. I think this game is important, but a lot of people don't like Sac State right now. So, Martin, Sac State at South Dakota State.
I think Dan Jackson shuts up the darlings of the FCS this year.
Who considers Sac State their darling?
People seem to like him with all the hype they're getting for their $50 million NIL stuff. Yeah. So I think Dan Jackson puts him in their place.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to look at the Sac State depth chart. Jaden Rashada or Cardell Williams. Cardell Williams is the transfer from Tulsa. Rashada from Georgia via Arizona State, I believe. It's interesting that there isn't a quarterback named as a starter yet. Either of those two guys, if a Big Sky school lands either of those two, their fan bases are pretty happy. So Sac State's going to be fine there. But I'm really curious to see how quickly Brennan Marion can get his group humming. Because there is some hype in Sacramento, and I know online people make fun of them, especially for the FBS, attempt to leave and failure to launch, and absolutely fair to make fun of them for that. That's gone, but that has nothing to do with how Marion can coach. And if you watched UNLV ISU last week, you saw UNLV without Marion not that scary. And UNLV was pretty goddamn good last year, which means I think the brains have left UNLV. But that means the brains of UNLV are in Sac with an invisible silent K at the end of it. So I'm more concerned about Sac State being good this year than I think a lot of FCS followers are overall. I'm going to narrowly go with South Dakota State. I really don't want to. I just think that it's a big challenge to get that many guys together week 1 against a good team because Sacramento State doesn't get any tune-ups. So I just think if there's 1 or 2 games where Sac State trips on their dicks when they don't need to, it's week 1. South Dakota State, I know they lost guys, but they've been building that thing from within for a long time. So a lot of talent stayed in South Dakota State as well. So yeah, I'm going with the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, I got to go with the Jackrabbits as well. In our comment section, for the most part, everybody also agreeing you got to go with Dan Jackson and the Jackrabbits here. Yes, he was at Idaho last year. Yes, he was in the FBS for the couple years before that. He has not been around the SDSU program for a while, but again, the guy played there. He came through that coaching tree that, again, Stiglmeier's tree is all of a sudden just growing and growing and growing, which is insane for a guy who didn't really have much of a tree until the last couple of years of his career. Man, I've been saying it on this show for quite a while, guys, that I think Sac State's going to be really good because the only reason UNLV was any good was their offensive coordinator. Half of that has come to fruition. UNLV looked like complete dog shit, and they're probably going to be dog shit all year long. Week 1, look, I don't think Brendan Marion is going to do what Jason Eck did and bring this team from complete trash to, hey, we almost beat our FBS rival. A couple breaks go the other direction, and it's a completely different game. Don't think that's going to happen. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than probably some people want it to be. But, man, you got to go with SDSU right now just because the continuity there. They do have a lot of the talent coming back. They do have a coach that, yes, he hasn't been there in a while, but he has knowledge of the program. Brendan Marion is essentially starting over from scratch with Sac State right now. Moving on. You guys know I have been so excited to talk about this one. Top 5 Portland State at BYU.
Portland State backdoor covers. BYU wins.
Yeah, Portland State coming off a 42-0 home loss to Tarleton State on national TV. Dallas, we've talked about this for years and years and years. We keep wondering, is this the year Portland State bottoms out? I think this is the year Portland State bottoms out. So if this is closer than 42-0, it is an act of evangelism on the side of BYU, where their goal is to get a few more converts by showing how modest and charitable even their football team can be. So no, BYU is going to win this one easy.
Breaking news,
the ugliest game in the entire goddamn nation.
Yeah, give me the Super Soakers, guys. Breaking news from Martin, producer Martin, producing in public, and breaking news from friend of the pod who was just on the pod, Greg Woods. Wazoo has decided on their starting quarterback. However, they are not going to announce it before the game, which again, it's because WSU stands for We're Scared University.
So, man, such a flex. Well, we know who it is, but we won't tell you.
Yeah. Great. That shows confidence. You guys are really prepared for this Vandal game. Moving on, guys, because we are over an hour in. That's why we haven't been hitting the comment section in the and folks' predictions as much because we are already over an hour. Cal Poly at San Diego.
I'm going to go San Diego.
I'm so goddamn torn on this. I know San Diego was good last year, but I don't know how much of their roster they return. I don't cover Pioneer Football League, and I'm not going to try. And I know year in and year out, Cal Poly and San Diego play tighter than they should.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't know. I'm going to go Cal Poly. I shouldn't. I just know what everyone else is picking, so where there's at least a little bit of drama. I don't have a good reason. I think Cal Poly and Portland State might be battling out for like the 2 worst teams in the nation. I'm talking myself out of Cal Poly right now, so
I'll let you keep doing it if that's where you're going.
No, never mind. I take it back. San Diego, like Cal Poly, there's nothing there from last year at all. There's absolutely no one covering Cal Poly because of just what a lost place it has looked like. I hope Paul Wolf can turn it around, but like, hey, San Diego has at least a winning culture around them. Cal Poly doesn't, and they always play close. Tie goes to the team that wins a game or two once in a while. San Diego.
Yeah, we're going to make that a clean sweep here for San Diego. As Jason Mayer says, skip this game. Realistically, though, as Captain 58 says, low-key, probably going to be a good game, probably going to be a close game. He's taking Cal Poly in overtime. I'm taking San Diego State as well, but the Cal Poly San Diego game to kick off the year every year is just, man, is an affront to football itself. If you watch this game, more power to you, but I'm taking the Pioneer League every time against Coward Poly. Last few ones, guys, before we get to Idaho. Idaho State at Southern Utah.
I want to pick ISU, but I think I'm gonna go Southern Utah.
Man, this is one where I'm kind of shooting in the dark too. Jordan Cook is not starting this week for Idaho State. He's allegedly out with injury. But I will say UNLV is not world beaters, but Idaho State looked just fine talent-wise. That in spite of losing, high-end receivers each year because of how, what Cody Hawkins does offensively, he can always find guys who I swear catch goddamn everything. And Idaho State's O-line looks like it has taken a step up, which is part of, if you listen to the interview, part of why he said, like, hey, they're running the ball now because they can. So I'm going to go Idaho State. And this is kind of a must-win for Idaho State. They have such a rough schedule. But I when I watched Idaho State last week against UNLV, they looked like they could just be they looked like that dead center, the Big Sky, was the right pick. And I'll take the dead center, the Big Sky, over Southern Utah right now.
In the comment section, McLean Westbrook, he of the ISU Jungle Land podcast. If ISU doesn't take care of business, I'll be real concerned. Man, I got to go with Martin on this one. Give me the old patented Bengal letdown. Look good against an FBS squad that is probably going to win 2 games. They're probably going to be really bad. Like really, 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 really bad. UNLV's defense was dog shit last year. Their defensive head coach moves on. They bring in a defensive head coach, and that team still looks like there's just nothing in the cupboard. Give me SUU as it is on the road. If it was in Pocatello, maybe we give it a little bit different story there, but I'm taking SUU in this one, guys. Sorry, McLean.
Jackson Sharman's listed as a starter for the game against Southern Utah.
Is he ultra soft or is he ultra tough?
Dallas, I was about to make the same joke. We're on the same page.
I guess we're gonna find out. But the bigger news to me was, look, this might shock you guys, so make sure you're sitting down if you're listening. Idaho State has a top 5 transfer on their roster at quarterback, Logan Gonzalez, formerly of Portland State, top 5 Portland State, who is somehow not their number 2 quarterback. Pretty wild. But we'll say, hey, Dasan Brooks, however you say his name, running back for Idaho State, he looked pretty good against UNLV too. So I believe in the Bengals a little bit, but God, like McLean said, they better win this game if we're going to sustain any of that.
Heading down to the beautiful desert of Arizona, NAU at Arizona State.
Orcam go Sun Devils.
Arizona State, we talked about NAU, like Pennington returns, but a lot of new faces on that NAU roster, 28 returning lettermen.
Yeah, Cam Scadaboo's not there for the Sun Devils anymore, but again, this team did win the Big 12 and go on to the college football playoff after expecting to be, I think, the 11th team out of 12 in the preseason polls. Kenny Dillingham's a hell of a coach. I don't care what Brian Wright and Ty Pennington have done. I'm not taking them against a team that went to the college football playoff last year. Ron Lowney saying NAU for the upset. Shout out Ron, but I think just about everybody else is taking the Sun Devils in this one. Last game before the Vandals, guys. Davis at Utah Tech.
Davis wins, and I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, Davis, starting quarterback, Caden Pinnick. You can't look up the stats because last week was a no contest against Mercer due to the weather. In the first half, Pinnick looked really good. In the second half, Mercer's defense settled in. Pinnick didn't look bad. It's just Mercer was a different team the second half. But Pinnick, it looks like he is at least going to be a solid to good Big Sky quarterback. He's a little bit of a dual threat. They're probably not going to call a ton of design runs for him, but that's part of how this offense is going to change. Is it's probably going to be more quarterback centric than it was last year. Tim Palouse, an offensive guy who knows what he's doing. Utah Tech does not know what they're doing. So yeah, Davis wins.
Yep. Rob Maurer and Rob, please let me know if I'm saying your name wrong. Rob Maurer in the comments. Davis should win fairly easily. Crew had 76, just saying stash. Man, I'm on the same thing. Give me Mr. Plow all day long in this one. Man, until UC Davis actually craters. I had been hoping that Dan Hawkins was gonna let that program slip. It didn't slip. They bring Tim Plow in. Yes, you could also say he was one of those guys, maybe not born on third, but maybe born on a double. Until that program craters, there's no reason to pick against them because they did look pretty damn good for a good stretch of time last week. With that said, gentlemen, we are an hour and 10 in. We are finally circling the drain, maybe? Idaho at Wazoo this weekend, 7 p.m. If you're not able to make it to Moscow, it's on the CW. If you are able to make it to Moscow Pullman, get over to Martin Stadium. Watch this game because it could be the first time Idaho beats their FBS rival in quite some time. Martin, any final thoughts and score prediction?
I think it's going to be like how you guys said. I think it's going to be a fairly close game. I think what changes this time is going to be I think the end it'll be close, but I think I'm going to go Idaho 24, WSU 21. I think it'll be an inverse of I believe it's an inverse of the score from 2022. I think Josh Wood is what will, I want to say was that he'll kind of I think he'll be able to get Idaho. I think he'll make enough plays to get Idaho over the line.
Brian, final thoughts on Idaho and score prediction?
Yeah, I'm going Idaho, man. There's a lot. I think it's going to be tight. I'm curious how the energy for WSU is going to be at the, in Pullman as well. But there's a lot of, if Idaho's offense is more explosive than last season, the way Thomas Ford believes it will be, I think Idaho has a very, very good case to why you would call them the favorite for this game. I think Idaho probably benefits a little bit more from, in spite of what WSU is trying to do with letting nothing out. Both teams are new staffs, but Idaho's is completely unknown as far as what the change in play calling will be, stuff like that. Plus Joshua, and with Joshua Wood, it's a completely different playbook. Well, not completely different, but different facets of the game open to Idaho via calling options, calling for design quarterback runs. I'm going Idaho. I think it's going to be 31-24. I believe Idaho. I do believe this team can put up some points.
Yeah, I'm also taking Idaho, guys. We're going to hit the comment section very quickly. Jason Mayer, 29-21. Idaho Real Estate, 34-17. James Jacobs, 24-21. Travis Thompson, 21-17. Turner Webb, 31-28. Steve Kurtz, 10-7. Shout out, Steve. I think that's going to be probably pretty close. Line of Fire, 95, 31-24. James T.A., 28-24. Rob Marr, 35-28 for Wazoo. Michael Long, 24-23. Vandals. Again, we keep rolling here. Captain 58, Idaho 16-14. Vandals all the way in the comment section. Obviously, we're a Vandal show, guys. I'm taking Idaho 2017. I think Joshua Wood is going to be the X factor here. I think he's going to be the best quarterback on the field, and I think that's going to matter when you're talking about one team that's coming in with a lot of confidence in how this year is going to look, and one team that, publicly, again, We're Scared University is everything they're doing right now. Take the Vandals. Vandals at least, I think, are going to cover. I don't know how you can't pick the Vandals to cover this game. But again, through the comment section, we've got Vandals everywhere. Guys, Saturday night, we're going to find out just how good this Vandal team is and if they can punch up and knock out the Toothless Cougs. Final thoughts, gentlemen, before we say goodbye. Brian shakes his head.
I got nothing.
Martin's got nothing. Patreon.com/Tubs at the Club. If you are with us, it's less than a cup of coffee to just join in, talk Vandal football. We are a couple days away from our game threads exploding. It's the best place to communicate and hang out with people. If you can't make it to the game,
it's already exploding now as the season is approaching. Once you get to the game day threads, there's just nothing that compares on the internet. It's not remotely close.
Yeah, very much appreciate all of the 50 plus people that tuned in live today, the hundreds of people that are going to listen to this throughout the week. We thank you. Go Vandals, V's up, kick the goddamn Cougs' teeth in. And as always,
go Vandals. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Oh, Vandals.